I know that when the decisive moment comes, I will unfold the chessboard and offer him to play the most important game of my life. I know I will win. I must win. I must. On the day I received my first chess set, my grandfather Sergei ended up in the hospital. I was scared, although I didn't quite understand what the adults were saying. I was only 8 years old at the time. I sat alone in the cold hospital corridor, clutching the chessboard and waiting for permission to go to my grandfather and show him my wonderful gift. After all, he patiently taught me to play, even though my parents said I was too young to understand the rules. But Grandpa believed I had real talent. To pass the time, I opened the board and set up the pieces. "Chess!" suddenly exclaimed someone with a strange, booming voice. "It seems like centuries since I last played." I looked up. The strange stranger was tall, perhaps even taller than my dad, and at the same time very thin. I didn't even see how he approached. It was as if he had appeared next to me. He had sunken cheeks and deep eyes, and narrow lips stretched into an unpleasant smile. "Well, young lady, shall we play a game? Are you game?" I nodded obediently. "I always play with the black pieces," he said. "Your move." The pieces blurred before my eyes. "Sergei won't be coming home today," said the man, taking my pawn from the board. "However, nothing is certain yet. You must focus on the game. Much depends on it." But the more I tried, the worse I played. I was only 8, and I wasn't a master, although Grandpa always said otherwise. "Checkmate, my dear." "I'm sorry," said my opponent. I swallowed a lump of bitterness. "Goodbye, young lady. Perhaps next time you'll be lucky. For now." He left. I gathered the chess pieces. Soon my parents came for me. Mom was crying, and Dad said that Grandpa had passed away. But life went on. My parents finally noticed that their daughter played well and enrolled me in the chess club. I was the only girl there, but I played just as well as the others. I quickly became friends with almost everyone in our club. None of us were popular in regular school. A checkered board wasn't the coolest gadget. But Vanya had it the worst. The boys in his class literally bullied him. He often confided in me about his troubles. "Don't let them demean you," I always told him. "You're smarter and better than them." My friend just nodded sullenly. Our friendship endured into adolescence, and it wasn't just chess that bound us. Over time, I noticed that Vanya was increasingly avoiding people. Thin and physically weak, he couldn't stand up to the sturdy classmates who could be very cruel, and Vanya couldn't bear the bullying. One day, I went to his place to play. We were preparing for a tournament. I rang the doorbell, but no one answered. A bit worried, I turned the doorknob. I found my friend in the bathroom. Empty medicine bottles were scattered nearby. Vanya was unconscious. Calling an ambulance, I tried to administer first aid while waiting for the paramedics. And then, once again, like many years ago, I sat alone in the empty, dreary hospital corridor, clutching the chess box. I came to Vanya with them, and they were with me the whole time. Who would have thought we'd meet again? I jumped up at the sound of a booming voice. I recognized the strange stranger with whom I played on the day my grandfather died. "You still play chess?" he asked, pointing a bony finger at the chessboard. "Shall we play? Are you game?" I was ready for a new game and understood that I couldn't lose. I nodded slowly. The man chose the black pieces again. This time I subconsciously felt that it was about something more significant, not just a game. At first, I made a few wrong moves, but my opponent wasn't too attentive either. Perhaps he underestimated me. In the end, I overturned the black king and said softly, "Checkmate." Congratulations. The The stranger's lips curled into a crooked smile. But next time, I'll be more careful, just so you know. Anne, there you are. I heard Vanya's mom calling and I turned to her. I've been looking for you everywhere. I've been here the whole time, I replied. Playing chess with. I turned to my opponent, but he disappeared, as if dissolved in the air. I felt a bit uneasy. The doctors say Vanya will be fine. You saved him, Anne. It's like a miracle. I nodded, struggling with dizziness. A couple of weeks later, Vanya was released from the hospital. Gradually, he recovered, finished high school, and went to study in another city. We lost touch, but I think my friend is doing well. Later, I also left our town and entered university. Studying took up a lot of time, but I continued to be passionate about my favorite game. I can't even remember when I first saw a medieval painting depicting death with a chessboard. But from that moment on, I knew what happened to me in the hospital corridor. I understood who my opponent was. Soon I met a young man named Victor. A year later, we got married. My husband could never understand why I never parted with my chessboard. Our little son was born on time, but he was soon diagnosed with a severe heart defect. Doctors gave grim predictions. No one believed that my son would live to see his first birthday. A nightmare began. We literally moved into the hospital. I took my chessboard with me. My husband looked at me like I was crazy, but I know that when the decisive moment comes, the tall and skinny man will appear in the corridor again. I will unfold the chessboard and offer him to play the most important game of my life. I know I will win. I must win. I must.